Everybody has the same questions. As we get older, and if we're doing things right, we get older, what can we do to look the best we can be? That question comes up again and again. And I've been asked that question by so many people. I decided to do a program looking at what's out there, what we can do. And I turned to a person who has an incredible national reputation, Dr. Steve Davis. He is a plastic surgeon, but he's a surgeon who doesn't always operate. He's one of the rare people who says, I might not have to operate on you. I'll do something else. Dr. Steve Davis joins me on the Dr. Brian McDonough Show coming up right after this.
The Dr. Brian McDonough Show.
If you've been watching my show, you know that I have been talking to a lot of people outside the healthcare arena. In fact, our most popular program is Paul Westhead, coach of the Los Angeles Lakers way back in 1980. He won the title, and now he is basically the star, or one of the stars, of a show on HBO called Winning Time. Jason Segel plays him. Well, obviously, tons of people are coming to our site because of that. And it has nothing to do with medicine. And honestly, this program is something where I won't talk about medicine much, but I do want to tonight. I want to ask Dr. Steve Davis to join us. He has to talk about how we can look younger, how we can look better, what we can do to be the best selves. So, Dr. Davis, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on the program.
Hi, how you doing? It's a great honor to be on your show, Dr. McDonough.
It's
Very
good.
nice.
It's good to have you. I'm having fun with this show, but I think what's more important, we have like 300 subscribers. Oh, and I should say, please subscribe, press the button, do whatever you need to do to subscribe. I'm learning all this stuff. Whatever you do, subscribe, because there's lots of shows here for you. In fact, what I can do is switch the look, and this is where you can reach us and you can follow and you can do what you need to do to join us. And I'd ask you to do so. I think we're like 300 subscribers in like 6 weeks. So it's going.
Wow.
This, though, is about kind of having fun and entertaining people and telling them what they need to know. So let me give a little history on Dr. Steve Davis. This is Dr. Steve Davis years ago.
Oh, my God.
This is when he was an academic All-American tennis player who is now in a Hall of Athletes. I could talk about his tennis career and the fact that he gave up what could have been a great professional career to be a doctor, but he really wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to take care of patients. He wanted to be where he is now. And now here you are with the plastic surgery revolution. I don't have to do the PR. I just want to talk to you and find out what you think is the most important thing in your career as far as what you're doing and how you can make things better. So let's start with me.
I got you.
Let's start with me.
Okay.
Wait. Look how I've set up this studio. I'm sitting back. I've got makeup on, protecting the eyes, doing what I can. I have a son who does podcasts. You have a son who does podcasts. They could be right in front of the camera. No makeup, no lighting. They look great. There's something that happens in 30 or 40 years that makes us look older, and yet we still want to look young. We want to look as good as we can be. From your perspective, you've made a career, a life out of trying to answer people's dreams, help them out. Tell me a little bit first, why Steve Davis as a surgeon? You could have done anything. Why you chose this particular field?
You know, Brian, I can tell you, when I first went into the field of surgery, so again, going through medical school, you kind of get a sense, do you like to do more surgerizing and surgical things, or are you more leaning towards like an internal medicine route? And I always liked the idea to be able to fix something and do something to make the patient feel better, like that I could do. So I loved the idea of surgery. It was a great idea. But going through all the years of general surgery, the beauty of that is that you get the opportunity to really do a lot of different kinds of surgery, neurosurgery, cardiothoracic, transplant surgery I found fascinating. But the one that seemed like you could really stay with it for a lifetime was plastic and reconstructive surgery, because it was always something I felt that I could always make that person feel better, regardless if it was a breast cancer that I was going to have to reconstruct, or if it was, a trauma that I was going to have to put somebody back together again and make them feel better about how they look. It was always going to be more of a positive thing that they were coming to see me for. And I think that's what got me on that road to try to be, that guy that people would come to make them feel better about themselves. What I didn't realize, and that's where I'm going with the answer to your question, is how much of it stems from internally not maybe feeling so great about yourself. So again, sometimes the appearance on the outside, like for instance, somebody will come in and say they don't like the way their nose looks, but there was something that may have happened during their lifetime that made them feel bad about something, and they kind of internalized it, and they kind of focus it all towards something like their nose, or something like a scar that they may have gotten when they were a kid, when they fell down and they felt like they can't really go for a job interview, or they can't go ask the boss for a raise because they have a certain appearance about themselves. And if they could only fix that appearance, wow, what a difference their whole life could be. So that's kind of like where I tend to go with all my consultations and things like that. It's not always surgery. Sometimes it could be something as simple as just a really great skincare regimen, or some nowadays, Brian, let me tell you, where we've come from with this whole plastic surgery stuff, there's so many cool things that you could do now that have nothing to do with a surgical approach. All these non-surgical, non-invasive type things are absolutely incredible. Incredible.
You bring up an interesting point, because all of us have the things we were made fun of growing up. And I'm full disclosure on this show. When I was little, I was made fun of because I had a big head. And my big head is still a big head. It was a big head then, it's a big head now. Yet I went back to my roots in Lettermullen in Ireland, and guess what? Everybody on that island had a big head. Like, it wasn't my fault. But we internalize it.
Right.
And years I thought, well, if I didn't have such a big head, now it was good in football. It was a great battering ram. There were advantages, but when you have a big head, you kind of feel self-conscious. And many people don't get to the point until they're older, like I am, where you go, I'm comfortable with what I am. You're dealing with people at, let's say, 26 who are saying, like, to your point, I have a nose. That's the reason why. It's my nose. It's my ear. It's my lips, whatever it is. But not many doctors do what you're doing. They don't say, hey, look at you, and is this really what you want to do?
Right. Well, fortunate for you, even though it's a large head, it's a very handsome large head. But one thing that I got to tell you is some people carry this way beyond 26 years old, Brian. I mean, an example of a few, I just operated on a guy who, ever since he played football in high school, he's always been so self-conscious because he has gynecomastia, which is the female appearance on a man's chest of having breasts. Now, at around 17 years of age, a lot of kids that have that, it kind of burns off because it's a little bit of some baby fat or the adolescence. And as soon as they kick into a little bit more testosterone, it burns off and it goes away. But about a third of those people actually continue to have that for the rest of their life. And at some point, they just decide, that's it, I got to get this fixed. And that's what happened with this gentleman. And, the interesting thing, Brian, is years ago, when you and I were first going through medical school, when people thought about doing cosmetic surgery or plastic surgery, most of the time you heard about it on the Johnny Carson show, or you heard about it on some sort of celebrities or somebody like that. Nowadays, it is so prevalent in just regular society. Regular people are coming in to get a lot of stuff done, and most of them don't want anybody to know they had it. The Instagram people and, the Kardashian type things and the people that are like bloggers and things, they actually want to put it out there and let everybody know. But the majority of people still come in and they want to be very discreet about having something done. But I'll tell you, once they get something like that done, it's totally different. Like you could see like a whole veil gets just kind of like pulled away, and they can just feel like they can go out and be themselves. This guy can't wait to go sit by the pool with his grandkids this summer because he's always worn like a t-shirt because he always felt so bad about having like these breasts. So it's the coolest thing to see it actually transform people.
Which you get the joy out of that.
Yeah.
Before we talk about specific things, I do want to talk about Steve Davis, how you got to where you are now. So here's this picture.
Oh my God.
You're a college tennis player. You know, you basically, from what I understand, could have played, at least if not the major pro tour, at least a pro tour, but you decided you wanted to be a doctor. Now you come to this point where you're at the peak of your profession. What takes you from here to there?
Well, the first thing I did, I changed the hairstyle slightly, so it's not completely different. Well, a little, yeah, it's a little different.
Okay.
But you know what takes me from here to there? I'll tell you. I think a lot of it has to do with trajectory. You know, like I was so into that whole tennis stuff, even going through, you know, pre-med and trying to, you know, get into medical school. In the back of my mind, I really did think, you know, being like an all-American thing with the tennis and really having some really good success with it, I kept on thinking that there was a way that I could move forward. But just a quick story. There used to be a big tennis tournament at the Spectrum. I don't know if you remember this or not, but years ago it was called like the Philadelphia Indoor Tennis Championships, and like it was a big deal. So like back then, Connors was playing and McEnroe and all that, and I got a bid into the draw before the main draw to see if I could get to the finals of that. They put a little slot into the tournament. So it's like one of those qualifiers that have in a golf tournament or a tennis tournament. So anyway, I made it through a few rounds, and then I had one more round to go. And if I beat this guy, I was going to get into the main tournament. I was going to actually play McEnroe, John McEnroe. So I'm all excited. It's like about 12 o'clock in the afternoon on like a Thursday, and I'm ready. I've never heard of this guy before. Long story short, he cleans my clock and beats me like very badly. And I start to think, well, this guy is going to be the new like star, the rising star. He's going to go out tomorrow. He's going to play McEnroe, and he's going to be, and all of a sudden he's going to be like this incredible, like, you know, phenom. Okay. Shoot to the next day. I show up to watch this match because I figured here's this superstar. McEnroe never took his warm-up jacket off and beat him 6-0, 6-0 in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
That was basically the trajectory turning point where I said, if you're not going to really commit and really stick to something like this tennis thing, there's no way you're going to be able to make it on the circuit and make it to really be what you would like to be. So I kind of just kept on going towards the medical route.
And you failed terribly, and now you're performing surgery on people in their lives. But I just mentioned that as a perspective there. But you could have been a great tennis player. But, you know, tell me a little bit about what you learned, not from failure, because clearly you were a great player, but what you learned from that. Yeah. Did it motivate you to be a better doctor, a better surgeon? What life lesson did it teach you?
You know, one of the reasons why I love tennis and I love sports like boxing or golf, you really are out there pretty much alone. Now, I know you could play doubles and things like that, but when you're out there alone, you really do have to figure out ways to win, or figure out what you could do to, even if your, let's say, backhand isn't working well today, what else could you do and read the situation so that you could still come out potentially with a win? And I think, you know, it's a lot of self-motivating, a lot of training on your own. It's a lot of just being put out there. And I think a lot of times in the operating room and meeting with patients and doing things, you kind of call on those times when you really were like out there alone or out there, and you really have to kind of figure out a way to understand what's really the crux of the situation. That's the most important thing. But I got to tell you something, Brian, and I know you know this because you're so good I mean, for everybody that didn't know you way back when, you've always been an incredible communicator, incredible journalist, an incredible person to just be able to like articulate situations. And one of the things that I found over these years is that patients really want someone to hear what their concerns are, regardless of how unbelievable my facelifting skills could be, or something to that degree. When patients come in to see me, I really want to take the Brian McDonough way and really sit back, listen to what's concerning them, and try to, at that point, become a really great um, person that can understand and then implement a tack that will go after what's going to make them feel best about themselves. I'll give you an example. Somebody that comes in that, knows that they could probably use a facelift. And again, at some point, we could all probably do that. But what they're saying to me really is, I just want to look a little bit better because I just had the same experience with this woman. She just got divorced. Her ex-husband just got remarried, and their daughter that they had together is having a wedding. She's coming in because she wants to look incredibly great. So when she goes out there, she doesn't feel bad that the ex-husband's got this new wife and everything else. So the bottom line is, it's not so much about, I want to have this big surgery. I want to have this, like a week or so recovery. What can you do to just make me feel great about this wedding that's coming up in like 2 weeks? And you hear that, and you can start trying to like plan out things with them to really just make them feel better about themselves. So at the end of the day, I think when the patients are coming to see me and what they really are asking for is my ability to really make good decisions with them. And instead of like, I kind of back myself out of the whole thing and just try to talk with them about making really great decisions. And I think as we both get older, hopefully we start to be even better decision makers for our patients.
Yeah, I think you're really tapping into something, and I agree with you. I think I've always said, and I'm a family doctor, I've always said, if you listen to your patients, they will tell you what's wrong with them.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be great at a diagnostician. Just listen to what they tell you. They give you enough clues. In fact, many people today with Dr. Google will tell you what they have. It isn't that hard, but what it is listening and understanding. And do you find that's rare in surgery? I mean, I don't take the whole field and attack.
No, I do. I do, because I think I find myself thinking more as a family doctor, as a family practitioner, than I actually do sometimes as a plastic surgeon, because I'm trying to incorporate a lot of the things that they're telling me that'll fit into their life, that will make it better for them. It's not necessarily the surgery that's going to do it. And I do have, like a great family physician, like I'll have them bring their elderly mom in because they have a skin cancer on their forehead. And they'll bring their daughter in because she's starting to develop some stretch marks at a young age. So before you know it, I am treating people like a family doctor in a way, and they're bringing me those things, but I learned all about their family. I get very involved with them. And I think it's important also, Brian, because you probably know this better than anyone. Somebody comes in with, let's say, diabetes, and you know that they're not eating properly, but financially they may not be able to really afford the things that would make it better for them with their meal plans and stuff. So you have to try to figure out, knowing that they're probably not going to be as compliant as they could be with certain things based on what their socioeconomic state is and things like that. That becomes like where you're at as a family doc. It's not just like being able to diagnose something. It's like, okay, how can we put together a treatment regimen or a plan where your sugars aren't going to go off the wall, and yet be able to like work it within your budget of what you can afford and everything else, medicines.
It's interesting you say that. Like, obviously, my background is as a doctor, but I also do broadcasting. Just did a report for Philly in New York looking at how do you eat vegetables. And I did not know this. I asked my wife about it. How do I eat vegetables, keep the cost down? Because obviously inflation. Well, if you get frozen vegetables,
Yeah.
they're just as good as fresh. You
Right.
save a ton. Well, that knowledge isn't really medical school knowledge. It's
Exactly.
knowledge of eating the proper food is good, but how do you help somebody who's trying to figure out how am I going to do this financially? And I think a lot of medicine is meeting people where they are. Like,
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm saying. I know you're so good at that I really think that that's where I'm saying I try to pride myself on being able to do that from the plastic surgery perspective.
this is the Dr. Brian McDonough Show. My guest is Dr. Steve Davis. And if you are enjoying this, I'd ask you to subscribe to the Dr. Brian McDonough channel. Dr. Davis will also, I'm sure, put this out for many people so they have an opportunity to see it. But let's move a little bit to the procedures or non-procedures, ways that you now in your professional role as the plastic surgeon revolution person are taking care of these things. I love these pictures, but the reality is they're great. They're marketing, but what really is important is the core of what you're trying to do with your patients. So we started out with me, of course.
Yeah.
And I said, I got to get rid of these bags. I've got to look a little younger. Somebody like me, do you operate on them right away? What do you do? I mean, you probably could have a
No, I'm telling you something. Just like, so if you just came into my office and wanted to start talking about this, I'm telling you, so many times the basic thing becomes, what kind of skincare regimen are you doing to just try to make the old, dead, dried skin that's just hanging onto your face get, basically exfoliated away and do something to like generate new healthy cells to come to the surface. I always give the analogy about the hair. Everybody goes to get the ends cut from their hair so that the hair like grows better. And the same thing with the face in your skin. If you really have old skin cells resting on top of everything, the cells underneath don't really want to come up to the surface because they feel like there's no reason for them to be there. So by trying to do things to really promote a really good way to get those old, dead, dried cells off is a great thing. Starting with that, and then I'm telling you, Brian, there is so much in that whole revolution of using really great skincare that would be like, to me, probably number one. Number two, which everyone that's listening to probably knows a million times around, is something like Botox. Botox is now going to be celebrating its 20th year as an aesthetic, as a cosmetic product. And I have patients, Brian, that I've been treating for a long time. And in my chart, I have photos of them from about 20 years ago. And even though they're 20 years older, their forehead and around the crow's feet, actually, if you just took a picture of that, looks younger. And it's a way, Botox, I like to tell everybody, it's a way of literally putting certain muscles to rest. So the antagonistic muscle groups, the muscles that are against them, are actually working more so. Perfect example, and that's why everybody goes after those 11 lines, is like to inject those muscles that make you frown so that the ones that lift your brow are working unopposed. And before you know it, it looks like you had like a little bit more of a lifted forehead, or like your brows don't look like they're falling as much. So something simple like some of those injectable products that do that, and other ones that are what we call facial fillers, some names like Restylane and Juvederm and all those other types of things that are out there, we can put into like creases that start to like get older with us, and we can make them just look better. So to me, that's, those simple things that you could really do. Not a lot of people have to know you did it either. So that's another good thing.
I have to tell you a great story from 20 years ago, probably, and I will not name the surgeon, but I was on TV. Person comes in and says, there's this Botox. It's exciting. I've got some with me. I'd like to try it on you. And I'm like, sure. What the heck?
Really?
We drew up a chart, did the thing, and he injects me. And I went on TV and let's look at me right here. I've got a big forehead. Well, that forehead had no wrinkles. It had nothing. I mean, you could have sold ad space on it. And I remember going, and I had to sit there for months with it and thought, wow, this stuff works, but isn't there a creative way to use this? Like, do
Right.
you have to look fake? But it was a great lesson for two things. One, it taught me, and I would share this with people, that a quick fix is not always the best answer. Fortunately, that didn't last forever.
Right.
Second thing is, don't go for the first thing until you figure it out. Like, it was new. So I'm sure the person meant well.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, I mean, I literally had no facial expression from above the nose for that period of time.
And that's why it really is so important that patients are coming in and actually can discuss this so that you really understand where they want to go with this product. I have patients that come in and want to look just like that. They don't want to have any wrinkle on their entire face. And then I have the other side of things where they go, I don't want this to look too crazy. I want it to look very natural. I don't want anybody to even know I did this. So that's why you really have to trust the person. And then we all go back to like making good decisions with the patient, having trust so that you're listening to what they're asking for. And if you do have the skill set, you're able to deliver that product like that.
One of the guests we have on our interview series is Dr. Guy Webster, who is a dermatologist.
Yeah.
I first met when he was working at Jefferson, and he's had a long, wonderful career. And we were talking, and I said, well, these over-the-counter products, the skin creams and stuff, he says, well, they're good and they work, but you have to understand, if they're not regulated by the FDA, they can only do so much. Talk to me about that. Like, do you need to get prescription types of creams and advice?
I was just talking with patients about this today. Honest. One of the things about skincare products and the products that are sold over the counter, you always have to realize that if there's something there that can be sold over the counter to almost anyone that's walking in the door or buying it off the internet, it really can't be doing that aggressive of a treatment because not everybody has the same kind of skin. So something that has, let's pick vitamin C. We all know that vitamin C is a great thing to put on your skin. People take it orally and ingest it, hoping that will do something to make their skin better. Well, just imagine if you had a delivery system where you could apply a topical vitamin C product that actually had this unbelievable transdermal uptake, and it actually worked and got into your skin, as opposed to having to take thousands of milligrams of vitamin C orally. You could actually put it on your skin. Wouldn't it be unbelievable if it worked? And the answer is yes, and we have that. The problem is that the strength that has to be, because it is an ascorbic acid, would burn a lot of people's skin if they weren't taken along with it in the proper fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So what Dr. Webster was saying was, some of these things that are sold over the counter actually do have the right stuff in it. If you're expecting to see a phenomenal result in that, I'm not so sure you're going to see it that quickly, number one. And number two, I've been talking about this for the longest time, because when I was a plastic surgery resident, I went to Beverly Hills and did a cosmetic surgery fellowship. And one of the guys that was out there was a very famous dermatologist. I'll never forget, one of his lectures was about pH balance in skincare products. So follow me for a minute. Let's say, Brian, you decide tonight you're going to put this very expensive product on your face that has a pH that's very acidic. And your good buddy, Dr. Stephen Davis, gave you another product to put on right after that, not knowing you were going to use the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that product had more of a basic pH. When you put them together, you just eliminated both of them, because basically they canceled each other out.
Sure.
So one of the things he was trying to say was, aside from the fact that you could get burnt, aside from the fact that you could hurt yourself by using products that you don't know if they're good for you, so many of the women that come in to see me spend so much money. They'll go to Nordstrom's or Neiman Marcus or someplace like that and get these really expensive skincare products. And because they're blending them, not knowing like this one just smelled good and oh, this one over here also smelled good. They're actually canceling each other out, and they're spending a fortune for something that they could spend a lot less on and get even a better result. So it's a combination. So the answer to your question is having the FDA approval is a really good thing to know that it's going to be a safe thing, but not everyone has the same kind of skin type. And for sure, you don't want to be spending a lot of money on things that aren't going to actually pan out to work.
So you wouldn't be thinking of a plastic surgeon advising you on that, but they can, because
Absolutely.
you're looking at options. It isn't just surgery anymore, is what you're saying.
No, absolutely not. And for most plastic surgeons that are really progressive and moving forward with the times, we know that non-invasive procedures or minimally invasive procedures have really become so popular. And that's what people actually are coming in a lot of times to ask about. I saw a woman earlier today, and I gave her this whole thing about, okay, look, if you really want to have the gold standard in what you're talking about, it's going to be a facelift and a neck lift. Now, if that's not the direction that you want to go yet, let me give you some other things that we could do. So I think that's the way to really talk about these things.
The other area is the eyes. And I talk to people. Women will often bring it up to me. They're menopausal age. They're at a point they see changes. They want to have that youthful look in their eyes. What can you do short of surgery, or is surgery the answer?
A lot of times the upper eyelids really do need a surgical intervention in order to get rid of that extra skin. And many times their peripheral vision is like caught because they can't see laterally because of that extra amount of skin or that hooding. Sometimes we'll try some Botox injections around the eye and in the glabella or the frown line area to see if we can get some lifting that way to help them out. But many times that does turn out to be more of a surgical procedure. The lower lids, I've been doing a lot of laser resurfacings to the lower lids because a lot of people come in, they have a little bit of extra skin, but the majority of the complaint is some dark pigment that's there and some crepiness to the skin. Not so much that there's extra skin, but the skin quality is just not fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So doing some sort of a lasering procedure to do a purposeful way of irritating the skin enough so that as it heals smoother, better, etc., is really a phenomenal new thing that we could do.
I've asked you a ton of questions. We've talked about surgery. We've talked about other sorts of treatments. There you are working with someone in your office, but it doesn't look as if it's, you're in the operating room and it's kind of like you could come in for an appointment. And in fact, here, you could come in for an appointment.
Right. And this is a laser. This is what we're doing right there, is that laser type of a thing.
So that would be what you were just talking about. Would be,
exactly.
Now, why is the other person smart enough to wear shades and you're not?
Well, believe it or not, that laser is okay with regular glasses because he's not like usually a glasses wearer. He had to put those goggles on.
Okay, so he's not being dramatic. I just looked at it and I instantly said, okay, somebody's either dramatic or somebody's making a terrible mistake.
He just wanted to look a little bit more like Kanye West with those white ones.
And you look like you're more subtle there. I mean, but hey, we'll move on. But okay, so only if I've been taking a lot of your time. If people have, not just for you, but if they have questions, they want to learn more. I know you do a lot on social media. Are there places people could find out more about you or whatever?
Absolutely. Well, definitely, our Instagram is Davis_CPS. Facebook is Davis Cosmetic CPS. The Twitter is Davis CPS. But most people will find me at Davis Cosmetic Plastic Surgery. That's my main thing. But we do a lot of, and I never thought that this would happen with plastic surgery, Brian, but we do a lot of Instagram with different types of things, and then people will have virtual consultations with me. So we just did a couple of patients that saw something. I was on some show. I don't even remember what it was, but they got on before they were going to come up to see me for an actual visit. They got a hold of me from North Carolina. We did a virtual consultation. They wanted to show me, because one of the other things we didn't talk about, but I can tell you this time of the year, it's probably the most popular thing we're doing, is liposuction.
Mm-hmm.
So many people want to get rid of areas of fat. And, listen, if you're diet and exercising and you're doing all the right things, that's fantastic. But for most of us, there are areas that despite the exercise and despite the dieting, we can't get rid of certain pockets of fat.
Must be
And
tough
that's
for the rest of you.
well, that's really where liposuctioning
Right.
really is supposed to be used. It's somebody that's really been dieting and exercising and they go, listen, I don't want to lose any more weight because when I do, my face gets too thin. It just doesn't look great, but I still have these love handles or I still have something like that. So when these patients want to have me do this, I always want to have a virtual consultation with them. And ever since COVID happened, it even became more popular to not have everybody coming into the office if they really weren't going to be a good candidate for it. Because some people actually don't need a tummy tuck. They don't need to have any skin removed. They just need to have a little bit of fat taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that in the operating room. If it's small enough, we even do them in the office setting. So it is kind of like a lot of fun. I think everybody that's listening would hear in my voice that it is kind of a fun thing to be doing this plastic surgery stuff.
So you could have won Wimbledon.
That would have been probably even more fun.
Now, which would you choose? Wimbledon or what you're doing now?
Wow. I think this is going to sound like maybe I'm not being honest, but I really am being honest. I think this is probably the right thing for me to have done, because I think for the long haul, all the people that I can think of over all the years and the ones that are still coming up and the ones I even saw today that are so happy with things that I've done for them, I think even though I would have been really happy to hold up that Wimbledon trophy, trust me, Brian, that would have been an amazing thing. I don't think I would have really had the years of feeling so good about taking care of people if I didn't go this direction. So there's your answer.
That's really cool because, one of the reasons I do this show is just, talk to people about where they are, where they're going and share stories. But to hear someone who is satisfied,
Yeah.
at the point, that's nice. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join me on the program. You spent a lot of time, and I know
Thank you.
But I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brian. It's a pleasure to see you. And for everybody out there to know, this is the true guy. This Brian McDonough is the real dude. Just exactly the way he is exactly the way he's always been. He's just a wonderful, genuine guy, and I really appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you spending the time.
Thank you.
I'll leave you with the wonderful theme song.
The Dr. Brian McDonough Show.